What separates the leaders who keep rising from the ones who plateau? It's not how much they know because it's actually how fast they learn. The moment you start acting like you got it all figured out, well, that's the moment you stop growing. My guest was drafted by the Braves and the Yankees. He played in the College World Series and then walked away and started over at the front desk of his family's company. 3 decades later, he's helped upskill nearly 2 million people, and he wrote the book on it, The Learn It All Leader. Damon Lembi, we're going to talk about Guns N' Roses, Barry Bonds, and how we can up level our ability to be better leaders. Welcome to Leadership Live, my friend.
Donnie, it's awesome to be here. So thanks for having me, and I love the introduction.
Damon, I want to start off right here, man. You have been, uh, you've had the bird's eye view of 2 million learners, people elevating themselves into the next level of leadership and management. They're upskilling their lives. What are you seeing happen right now? In like, what's just happening in your industry that we should be aware of as learners and leaders?
Well, I think it's a great time, probably the best time in my life to be part of a learning community, learning industry, because AI is changing everything. The pace of change is like never before. So I truly believe, whether you want to call yourself a learn it all or have a growth mindset, we're going to be in a continuous process of change moving forward. So there's really nothing more important than having that learning agility and being able to learn, adapt, unlearn, try things out, fail, and keep moving forward.
I love it. Now, I brought with me something, Damon. I told you this was going to come into play here. A lot of the people who are listening to this podcast and watching, if you're listening, I'm holding a
A
claymore
sword.
sword. Okay, I wouldn't want to carry it around all day. A lot of leaders and a lot of people who are, they're at the forefront of their companies. They got there by swinging this thing, but that's not what they have to do. Like they have to. You say they have to turn into those that use it to knight others or to create new leaders. Talk to us about the shift here in how to put the sword down and become the kingmaker, so to speak.
Well, I love that analogy. And what I see you referring to is the command and control type of leadership, where you're just swinging it, you're taking charge, you're leading by fear, right? You've got the title. People better do what they say. Well, newsflash, that went out of style 15, 20 years ago. People just don't respond to that. I believe the leader's number one job, number one responsibility is to bring out the greatness in the people on their team. Win through your team. How do you do that? You invest in them. You
Mm.
give them the opportunity to, I don't know, have either it's having a coach, going through learning, or maybe it's just challenging them and putting them in a position that's stretching them, putting them on a project that maybe they don't even think they're ready for. And also, when you're having those conversations with them, have them walk away feeling like they're 10 feet taller.
Mm.
Bring out the greatness in them. A lot of times, especially high performers, they're tough on themselves. So share with them, hey, look what you've already accomplished. This is what I think you're capable of doing. So those are just a couple of examples of what I think that leaders really need to do if they want to evolve and grow and have a great team.
That is so good. Talk to me about what the whole idea of earners or earners or whatever that you left baseball, which I want to get into, but you decided to jump into this quest of helping elevate others through education. Like, why is that the heartbeat of Damon right now?
Well, I think it was really kind of you to say that I walked away from baseball. If we're totally honest about this, I got drafted twice, like you mentioned, and I turned those down, which is pretty common. And then my junior year in college, I had a great year, and I was ready to be drafted a third time, and it didn't happen, and it
Mm.
crushed me. It absolutely crushed me. I went on and I played my senior year, and I didn't get drafted then either, and I could have walked on and played independently, but I was, kind of down and out, right? And so I quit baseball. Huge argument with my dad over it. and I was unsure. I had imposter syndrome. I was unsure if any of the skills I had were transferable. And so I started off, instead of going into our big real estate company, I started off at the front desk at this little company called Learnit. And it was essentially started by my dad, Walt Lembi. He never actually worked there a day, but a lot of entrepreneurs, as you know, Donnie, they want to solve their own problems. He wanted to learn how to use Excel. He took a class. He said I could go out and buy a dummies book and it would be more exciting than watching somebody read page by page. And that's where the idea of Learn It came about. It was 90-minute classes that were fun, engaging, in person. And he was way ahead of his time. I'm sure we'll talk about where learning's going. But back then, you take an Excel class, it was a 3-day class. So everybody thought he was nuts having these 90-minute classes. In college, my wife doesn't like me saying this, but I wasn't a fantastic student. Baseball was my priority. But when I got into Learn It, I just kind of rolled up my sleeves and I loved it. I loved learning. We were going from DOS, if you remember those days, into Windows 1, and I started teaching classes. And I started teaching classes, A, to get myself out of my comfort zone, and B, I was like, this is a way to cut down on expenses. If I could teach the classes, it will save us money, and how to learn computers. So I did all that. And fast forward 7 years, 6 years later, the guy was running the place, didn't work out. I threw my hat in the ring, got my Learnit hat on today. And so I've been the CEO ever since. But what learning taught me was if I was going to be successful, I had to dive all in on learning, right?
Mm.
Read biographies, get mentors, get coaches. And I really went from not really being a huge advocate to classroom learning to like, this is my whole career has been based on it. And I love it. I love to continue to be able to learn and grow. And it's fun.
Isn't it amazing if you were to compare the amount of books you read before college versus after, like, and where the real education started? Are you a reader or a listener, Damon?
So it's funny. I even read a lot of books when I was in college.
Oh, did you?
I
Okay.
mentioned him a couple times. My dad was my idol, and he was a ferocious reader. But most of the books I read back then were, I love fiction books like John Grisham and Michael Connolly and stuff like that, and biographies and sports books. And I'm also a big rock fan, as we might talk about. So I read a bunch of biographies on rock bands. So I was always reading a lot. And then when I got out of the baseball and everything into the real world, I heard somebody say, and it stuck with me. One of the first things that I think all emerging leaders should do is they should read as many biographies as possible. I set out and I read 50 biographies, one after the other. And you learn so much. I mean, for like what, $15 or whatever, or free if you go to the library, these great leaders and the stories that they've, their failures, their successes. My all-time favorite is probably Richard Branson's Losing My
I was
Virginity.
I was about to
Um,
ask you. Yes.
yeah, and it was just like, here's this guy. I looked at it from Learnit's perspective. We're this tiny L&D company going up against these massive companies like Catapult and Productivity Point. And that was how it was with him, with Virgin and American Airlines and Tower Records, or Records, whatever they're called. And I actually even like wrote him a letter. I don't think I ever sent it to him, but I wrote him a letter. But that is just one of the so many biographies. So I would challenge your listeners at any level, read biographies. I mean, whether it's around Winston Churchill, um, I don't know, whoever's has you think's going to have an impact on you, but go out there and do it.
All right. I'm not asking for your all-time list, Damon, but
Okay,
I
okay.
am asking for what comes to your mind right now. And I
Yeah.
snap my fingers at top 3 to 5 biographies.
Mhm.
Give us the ones that are ringing that ring your bell right this moment or all
Got
time.
it. Okay, well, I'm gonna cheat by saying, I've already told you one,
Yep.
Richard Branson, hands down.
Okay.
Winston Churchill, the one that Andrew Roberts wrote, was the best. I've read, that's because it's shorter and it's got leadership lessons. I've read the entire trilogy that he had around the lion, all three of those. So those are great. Um, I would say, what would I say for a third one? Nelson Mandela.
Mandela.
Awesome, awesome. Gosh, I can't remember the name of it right now, but it's his main biography. So I would say that those are the three off the top of my head that are wonderful. I'll throw a fourth one in there. Um, and I consider this a biography. Bill Walsh, The Score Will Take Care of Itself.
Oh, yeah.
Phenomenal, phenomenal book. I think we've actually done that as a book club at Learnit 2 or 3 times. And what I like about that book is what he did is he made it so that you didn't have to be Joe Montana or Dwight Clark or one of these guys on the field. Everybody contributed, from the people in the press box down to the people folding the towels. And so that is another great book around Bill Walsh's life story, how it evolved and how he became who he is today.
I love it. Shoe
Oh,
Dog
actually,
fan?
who he was. Shoe Dog,
Yeah.
absolutely, great one. Phil Knight. Phil Knight,
Yeah.
that was another good one. Well, let me ask you, you gotta give me 2 good ones.
So I'm not as good on the biographies.
Okay,
Right now, I am digging deep into Milton Hershey, and his
okay,
life is like it's lighting me up. I'm actually framing a book around it, and so Milton, and I don't have the name of that one in front of me. The let's see. I've not been as good at the biographies. Right now, I will say that I've gone about 400 deep into self-help, and I'm kind of
okay,
done with that. I'm going through the classics now. Just I'm reading Steinbeck right now.
okay,
And
okay,
but yeah, it's
nice.
but biographies, I do want to get in on that train
The
for
last
sure.
thing I'll say about it is I'm, in this uh, biographies, and I'm kinda like a military history guy as well, so, World War II, Civil War, and I read a lot of biographies around, those leaders on both sides of, some great ones there, as well as United States presidents. Everybody from, Kennedy to Andrew Jackson, that was a crazy good one, to, uh, Ulysses Grant, that was an
Yes,
awesome biography as well.
that's
Um,
so cool.
and one that's not a biography, but I recommend everybody read is Doris Clark's book. I can't remember her name exactly, but it was the tribe of Abraham Lincoln, the tribe of rivals, whatever it is. But you could, listeners, Google it, check it out.
Oh
And
my goodness.
what I love about that book is it talks about Abraham Lincoln as a leader. Instead of hiring a bunch of yes men, he hired people to join his staff who hated him, totally disagreed with him, so he can get all these different opinions. And then over the years, he got them to buy into what he was doing. And he learned from them. He changed his ways. He's changed his thinking. So, Tribe of Rivals, whatever it's called, that's a must read for I think.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, Damon has a podcast with 300 and some odd episodes, and he does go through some of his top books occasionally on that one. And I heard, I love the expanded explanation of that, and that is the way that a true leader should function. You never answered though. Are you do you audiobooks or paper books? What's your?
Oh, I didn't even know you asked me, but I do all the above.
Oh, do you? Okay.
So what I do is for business books, I just got done reading a book called How Leaders Learn by David Novak, who was the CEO from Yummy, who is Yummy Brands. Awesome book, because we're all about learning, right? And so for that, I read, and I actually prefer now. I do it on the Kindle, and what I do a lot of times, Donnie, is I'll take the notes from the Kindle and I'll throw it into Claude. So one, I could save it, but sometimes there's things I don't understand, and so I'll have it articulate to me, and I'll even ask it, how do I use this in my own life? Um, and then, so that's what I do for that. I like reading a lot of spy books, real world stories, and sometimes even for the biographies, those are my audiobooks. So I do a lot of audiobooks on that,
Nice.
so I don't have to have everything memorized. Right now, my audiobook that I'm listening to is well, actually, I probably got like five, right? Whatever.
Right.
But
Yep.
right now, it's Jim Collins, What's a Life? I think that's really cool because, you got a guy like me in my 50s, and I'm sure some of your listeners, and he just compares these stories of different people about how they have done pivots and changes, and really found either what they're passionate about or what they're great at. And it's great stories. I mean, there's stories about Robert Plant and John Glenn, and it's super cool. So I do a mixture of all the above. And one of the things I want to point out, I had a guest on my podcast named David Katz, and he said that learning without doing is treason. And
Woo!
I think that think about that. Learning without doing is treason, because I went from wanting to read 60, 70 books a year. Like, how many books can I read? I don't know how you ever read when you had 8 kids. But now that I have 2 kids, I don't read as many books, but I'll go back and I'll reread some of these books, like Ryan Holiday's Obstacle is the Way or whatever. But I'm really intentional on thinking about, how do I apply this in my personal life or my professional life? Um, so yeah, I've kind of slowed that down, the number of books, but really made sure that they're more sticky, that I'm actually getting something out of them.
That is that's the gold we're going for. I'm glad that you landed there. By the way, I didn't realize you interviewed that person. I heard you say that on one of your podcasts, and I wrote that down. Learning without doing is treason. And
I wish I made up that line myself, but I didn't.
oh, that's like, yeah, it's like say it again, Mufasa. It makes you
Yeah.
shiver. Excuse me. The I'm curious for you, like, as we go through this makes me think, Damon, about learning and the modalities of learning. Recently there was a study that came out that said, hey, the the centers of your brain that are active while reading a book are the same things that are active while listening to a book. And so, good news, audiobook listeners, this study funded by Audible. But the when I look at this, experience is the number one teacher, right? Action is the number one teacher of anything. What are some of the I don't want to you can call it secret sauce, you can call it ingredients, but learning, like, this is your it's what you do and you've done it 2 million times. What do you see are the ingredients of learning? What makes up learning? Um share us give us all your patented secrets, Damon. Like,
So,
how do we do this?
well, I want to preface it by saying I'm not an instructional designer, right? I'm fortunate I got a great team, but I do feel like I'm very confident in what works when it comes to learning. And learning is hard, because what learning is that you're asking somebody to change, and change is tough for people. So if you're not careful, whether you're watching this podcast or you're taking a Learnit class or you're watching a video or you're doing whatever, you can make it passive, right? So you could sit back and you can zone out and not getting anything out of it. What we've done at Learnit is really rolled up our sleeves, and again, that word, being intentional on how do we make it so that they're putting it into action. And
Mhm.
one of the things that we do is, obviously we broke it down into bite-sized pieces. We have our 2-hour classes, but then we have boosters or follow-ups where people are committing to something before they go into the next session. I'm going to have, let's say it's on feedback. I'm going to commit that I'm going to do this before the next call. And we do that with a lot of our clients, where I'll jump on the call, leadership call, and people will go around the room saying, hey, we took your 4 growth model and we did this. A lot of the work we're doing right now is AI adoption. And in AI adoption, we're not showing you necessarily how to use the tools, but that's part of it. But we're getting in there, we're rolling up our sleeves, and you're working and you're building agents together, and with somebody on your team, if you're in accounting, somebody in accounting. And then you're coming back for the next session, Donnie, and you're sharing how that you've implemented this. So I think that learning is, you got to make sure that you take away the just being passive, and that you're putting it into action. Because at the end of the day, we train 2 million people, let's say. Sure, it's great that we're doing skills training. I think what we're really doing is delivering confidence, but confidence comes from the courage of putting something into action.
Yeah.
So, you can get technical about, the instructional design and adding in the moments or the interventions. That's all fantastic. For me, from a higher level, it's getting people to take from passive into putting it into action. And as a leader, your responsibility, I like to call it learning time off. We have paid time off, PTO.
Okay.
Give people learning time off. Give them time during the day to put things into action, to try things out, to take classes, to do things. Give them a sandbox to practice. And learning doesn't have to be always formal. It doesn't have to be formal. You can set up informal mentoring groups. You can set up book clubs. You could do whatever it is you want to do, but you have to give people the space. If you're going to invest in them, if you're going to buy them training, you have to give them the space to be able to put it into practice as well. Otherwise, whatever you do is not, you're not going to retain it.
Practice, practice. I love how the top professionals are always practicing, right? That It's not an ugly word. All right. I want to know, Damon, for you, and what some of the things I'm hearing from you is that it's not enough to give someone information. We have to challenge them to make choose an action, or maybe, but they need to commit to an action, and then from that, know that there's going to be some follow up on the other side of that, because knowing, I guess, according to GI Joe, it's half the battle, but doing probably is definitely the other half. Talk to me about play. Where does gamification come into the learning process? Or I don't know, like what's you're a baseball player. Like how does that work with leaders? Like, can we play and learn?
Well, one of the things I want to go back to a little bit is you talked about information and knowledge. I think that that's not what's going to set you apart in the future anymore. I mean, that is everybody has that now with AI. So, at the end of the day, what's going to set you apart? How are you going to, what are the traits and the skills? And we can talk about that. But information is out there, knowledge is out there. It's like, what do you do differently with it? When it comes to play and gamification, absolutely. I love it, right? Because I'm a competitive guy, right? And I think that look, it's good to, you could set up a gamification and you can compete against others, on your learning and your results. But I also think if you're going to do that, we do that for our sales team. We have some gamification, self-paced learning and stuff that we do, and we have winners. Excuse me, who's doing the best individually, but also as a team. And we've broken it down into different groups. So I've got 10
Hmm.
sales reps. We got two people per team, and so I think that engagement is very helpful, as well as role playing. I think that as a leader, that is something that you should be doing all the time with your team. And it's hard. It's not easy, right? I mean, some people don't like it and they think it's awkward. Every Wednesday in our sales meeting that I'm actually missing right now is we do a little role playing, whether it's prospecting, whether it's objection handling, and those are great learning opportunities. But we've set up a space, Donnie, where people feel comfortable enough to give honest feedback, candid feedback on what we can do differently in the role playing. You talk about practice. Baseball, all these sports, they have spring training, and what is so important is practicing the fundamentals. The fundamentals. If you're a leader, you know the fundamentals of running a good one-on-one, the fundamentals of having a difficult conversation, whatever that is. Don't always look for what are the newest, most exciting things you can do. Get the fundamentals down. Last thing I'll say about that, use an AI tool to practice with you. I mean, it's
Thank you.
amazing.
Yeah.
I'm a Claude guy now. I used to be a ChatGPT. Uh, for every interview that I do, uh, I throw it into Claude and I have it hammer me with feedback. But I use Claude, and I always do voice. That's a big tip. Get away from using a keyboard. Use voice because
Hmm.
it processes how you think it better, and it gets to know you better. But I do role playing all the time with it. I'm like, I got to walk into this conversation. What are some blind spots that I may not be seeing? And I practice back and forth with it. But I'm a huge fan of leveraging AI for role playing, for feedback. I mean, it's so much more than just how do I write a better email?
Thank you for that. Like, I actually feel like, you mentioned role play, and I can remember, probably, if I were to think back, Damon, to like the top 10 moments where my ears were the brightest red. Like, it was like, maybe one's on stage, the other times were during role play, but it is life changing. That's one of the ways that we have. It's a low stakes way of adapting new skills. And like, are you leveraging? So you said you leverage AI by dropping it into the voice, into voice for Claude. Is it you're doing this before big meetings and saying, give us an example of what that might sound like?
Sure. So, for one, when it comes to role playing, though, Donnie, as a leader, you need to model it yourself, right? You can't expect your team to do it unless you do it. So, I always like to go first a lot of times, like, oh, I'll
For sure.
practice a call, whatever. Now, here's some examples of how I use Claude. So, I will say, look, I've got to have a difficult conversation with somebody. I want you to play the role of a chief human resource officer, and we got this other person coming in the room, and here's the situation. I mean, they're showing up later, they're toxic, and I'm gonna walk you through. I'm gonna share with you the questions I'm gonna ask, and I want you to give me pushback on if these questions are coming across as aggressive, or if they work, they land correctly. So that is an example right there. I'd say is how I do it, like before a call.
Mhm.
But where I get the most value out of it is we use Fathom at Learnit, and Riverside for our podcast. Every time I get done with a podcast, I will throw it into Claude. I've got in Cowork, whatever, and it will rank me on certain areas. How do you ask questions? Are you double layering questions? What are your listening skills like? And I'll say, and again, I always talk to it. I don't type it, right? And I'll
Mhm.
say, okay, what are some of the biggest misses that I had in this conversation? Or where should I have asked a deeper follow-up question? Or what are my best questions that I ask? You know? And if you're not a podcast host, that's fine. You could do this when you're running a team meeting or a sales call. And I just have it pressure test me on what I did well, but give me some examples of where I could do it better. And I will
Ooh,
tell you right now, 100%, it's helped me in so many ways get better. And then when I
I
go into to next sales call, then I will actively think about that and I'll try it. And then I'll throw that transcript back in. I'll say, here's the call I just did. How does it compare to the last time you rated me on it? And, so I mean, there's just learning opportunities. And look, it's great if you could do this with a human. Great. But maybe that human's not available. Maybe you're a little nervous and you don't want to have that conversation. So I think you should learn how to leverage AI that way to for your own personal growth.
uh, I love it. I will say my experience of you as I have been listening to your podcasts, and this is no joke. My experience is like, this guy is really good at asking great questions and listening. That's literally what I thought of. Like, this is going to be good. Most podcasters, they get on partly because they want to, there's banter, maybe they want to show what they know or whatever. But no, it really feels like an amazing station for you. And what you're showing is literally you're modeling that skills are learned. You're not
Mhm.
born with them. So, how cool is it that the Learn It All guy is learning it all, you know, doing this thing?
Well, funny little story, and I really appreciate you saying that. It means a lot, and I got a long way to go. I was talking to my mom the other day, and she's like, "Oh, I ran next into Margie at the supermarket, and she asked me how's Damon doing, and she said, oh, Damon's got a podcast, and she's like, oh my god, I want to listen to it." And my mom's like, "Well, don't listen to the first 50 episodes. He was terrible, but he's much better now." And the whole point of that story for the listeners are, if there's something that you want to get better at, you just got to keep doing it over and over and over and over and learning, getting in those reps. Because like I said, getting in the reps helps build the confidence. So yeah.
It
So thank you very much for the compliment, because I
Oh,
enjoy it and I want to get better. So yeah.
100%. For me though, I love that we can leverage AI. It's like I told you, it just makes my ears turn red to think about. But that if that builds skill, and yet
Mhm.
conflict is kind of what gets in the way of that, we can normalize feedback by getting it more often, and we all have access to this stuff. And so I love Notebook LM, by the way, if
Mhm.
you because I can drop in Damon's book at the same time
Yep.
and get that. Now, you there, like, when it comes to decision making, just to shift
Mhm.
gears, I'm
Mhm.
so curious about this. You talk about purposeful awfulizing and sometimes taking big risks.
Mhm.
There was a moment with Guns N' Roses.
Mhm.
Um, Again, way maybe a different page, but it's just like, I just want tell us a story of the moment that could have been great or terrible, and how you pressed into that.
Sure. So I'm a huge Guns N' Roses fan, back from the late 80s. Guns N' Roses is my favorite band. And over the years, I've been fortunate enough to meet quite a few rock stars. And I have a friend who also has a huge podcast, Dean Delray. I think it's called Let There Be Rock or Let There Be Talk or something like that. And called me one time and said, the Guns N' Roses are playing in San Francisco in 6 months, and they wanna have a after party. Now, this is Guns N' Roses where it's just Axl and Buckethead and all these guys. Slash and them is before they came back. This was 2006. All right, long story short, Guns N' Roses manager called me and said, "Here's the deal. Del Rey says you want to have a Guns N' Roses party. There's no guarantee that Axl's going to show up, but it's got to be 2 o'clock in the morning after the show ends at the Fillmore. It's got to be, 5 to 1 girls to guys, and you got to find a place that will serve booze the whole time. And Axl probably won't show up. You going to do it? Sure, absolutely, I'll do it. I took the Richard Branson approach. Screw it, let's do it.
Screw it, let's do it.
Yeah, that's just the way to go. And I've done that too when I've been given opportunities to do big speeches or whatever. I'll just say yes before I have time to think about it, and just go for it. Just go for it. So I said yes. We found a location. I remember being at the restaurant, old, Original Joe's, with my brother and the manager of Guns N' Roses, and he was freaking out because his boss is Axl Rose. I mean, can you think of a tougher boss than Axl Rose? And so I was worried people may not show up. It's a Wednesday night, so we called the guy at the front door. The party was going to start at midnight or 1, and the guy's like, "Damon, there's probably 500 people lined up around the block waiting to get in." And and this was right after Axl was like hidden for 10 years, so this was a big deal. So we're all excited, but I could see this uncomfortable look on the face of the owner of the restaurant, and uncomfortable face of the owner of the restaurant. So he's like, "Can I talk to you for a second?" So we go over to the other room and say, "Yeah, what's going on?" And he said, "Well, I didn't see this, but there's a very good chance, like 75% chance that the water's going to go out." And I talk about this in chapter 5 of my book. I'm like, "Oh, the water's going to go out?" And so I'm like, "No problem. We'll just get a bunch of bottled water. That'll be fine." My brother was like, "You're a moron. He's talking about no water, no restrooms." And so he said, it's too late to get porta potties. It's too late to do anything. Do you want to cancel the party? And so this is where the whole purposeful awfulizing thing comes in. So purposeful awfulizing is, I define it as looking at a decision 12 months out and what is the worst case scenario. Okay, so if you're going to acquire a business or quit your job, if 12 months out, if the worst case scenario, you know, if it's something you can't overcome, then you shouldn't do it. Right. I think a lot of times we look at things with too rosy a glasses, like this is the best thing that's going in the world. This is going to happen. I made a mistake early on in my career. I opened up way too many locations and I didn't think about what the worst case scenario was, and .com fell apart. So I wish I would have looked at that, seen what could have happened, and maybe even pivoted. Going back to the Guns N' Roses story, I thought to myself, okay, the worst case scenario is that no water. We absolutely embarrass ourselves. This guy probably gets fired from his job of Guns N' Roses manager. Whatever, who's fine? I'll be fine. You know what I mean? Who cares? I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's embarrassing, but it's not the end of the world. So we show up. I said, don't say anything to the manager because he'll freak out, right? And the party went off. It was crazy. All these Metallica showed up, Sebastian Bach from Skid Row, Ugly Kid Joe. If you're in your 50s, you know all these bands. And there was no Axl, no Axl and everybody's like, "Where's Axl at? Where's Axl at?" I'm like, "Look around you. There's Lars Ulrich dancing on the floor over there. There's Sebastian Bach serving wine to everybody, and and Del Rey's DJing, and the water was fine." Right, the water, no problem with the water. And then 4:30 in the morning, I'm not kidding, Axl shows up, and the mood just changed. Del Rey was the DJ at the time. He started playing "Sweet Child of Mine." Axl came in and he did his little Axl dance, and sat down. A bunch of girls came over to him. His girlfriend didn't like that. He got pissed and he left after 3 minutes. But how many people, Donnie, can say they had a party for Guns N' Roses? But if I would have canceled it and didn't take a risk, I wouldn't be here telling you that story.
Screw it, let's do it. That's a great example of that. I think you need to write that to Richard Branson and make sure that it gets delivered to Necker Island or wherever it is
Yeah.
that you think you can reach him. All right. I'm curious. There are some leaders right now that need to be taking chances. They have
Mhm,
been they're getting a little bit long in the tooth. They've done
mhm.
the same thing for too long. It's not working. AI is starting to it's about to gobble, but it's nibbling at their toes. It's what are the top 3 things right now that you would say leaders ought to be looking at in terms of learning or upscaling or something because change is right around the corner?
Well, I'm gonna disagree with you when you say it's nibbling at their toes. It's like Jaws. It's gonna bite your legs off, because it's here, it's happening, it's only gonna get better, right? And
Mhm.
so, the number 1, as a leader, just like what we are talking about, are you leaning in yourself and using AI? I mean, because you have to. You absolutely have to. Everybody has to, right?
Mhm.
That's number 1. Number 2, as a leader, what is going to disrupt your industry? What is going to disrupt your company? Or what's going to disrupt you as a in your role? Because, here's the bottom line. A lot of the work that we're doing these days and these jobs that we have, it's going to be automated by AI, right? So you're going to have to change the way you go about things. That's just life. It's gonna happen. So that takes me to number 3. What are the human traits? What are the human skills that are still going to be valuable? And there's a lot of them, right? Judgment that we talked about, discernment, right? What else? I mean, there's empathy, right? There's these human skills, decision making. AI will give you 50 different options. Your gut intuition and your judgment is what's going to set people apart, set your decision making apart. So you want to, on one hand, double down on AI. On the other hand, you need to really hone your skills on those most important skills: creativity, uh, problem solving. That's why Donnie, I've brought on some of the biggest leaders in thought leaders in the world when it comes to AI, so I could have these conversations, so I know what's going to keep me relevant in the future, what's going to keep Learnit relevant in the future. So I hope that answers your question.
100%. Yeah. And my our final question I want to get to, and of course, tell us where we can find you. We've got your book linked below, The Learn It All Leader. Damon, you've talked to a lot of people. You've talked to the brightest and most brilliant people out there, in everything from AI to learning to growing companies. You have a cast of thousands that have fueled, and all the biographies that you've read as well.
Mm.
I'm curious what trends and themes you've been picking up just as like from multiple people. Like what are the biggest messages, I guess, if you were to boil any of these things down into something that is palatable and necessary for leaders to know? What would you say that you've been downloading from all of these sources lately?
Well, you just mentioned the brightest and most talented people. That is nice. But what I've downloaded from all these years is that's not what's going to set you apart. That is nice. That's great. But the people who I believe are truly going to be successful are the ones who continue to work and evolve and grow themselves, whether it's through humility, whether it's through taking chances. Um, some of the smartest people I know get stuck because they're know it alls. And I really believe that in today's age moving forward, you got to be a learn it all. You got to be somebody who's willing to continue to learn and grow and not be afraid to take chances. I mean, my little tagline is that great leaders aren't born or made; they're always in the making, and I truly believe that.
Damon Lembi, thank you for bringing the thunder today. Listen, Leadership Live, if we can lead better, we can live better. And Damon has showed us some of the things that we should really be thinking about. I hope that this will help you to continue to grow, development, and become what it is that you were made to be. Coming up in tomorrow, actually, Coach Michael Burt in Screw Your Why. Don't start with your why. Screw your why. Just go do something right here and right now. But for right now, find Damon Lembi, download his book, find learn it, and upskill and upscale your team. Damon, thank you so much, man. Thanks for adding to us today.
Donnie, I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.